Hello, I'm Martin Hazy, Chief Executive of Business SA, Chamber of Commerce and Industry, South Australia, and I'm here with Andrew McKenna, our Director of Policy and Advocacy. Business SA has recently submitted to Premier Marshall and Treasurer Lucas a pre-budget submission for the 21-22 financial year. Andrew, welcome. Could you please share with our listeners as to why Business SA actually does put a suite of recommendations forward to the state government?
Well, Martin, it's really important that Business SA is in front of the state government at the right time in terms of its budgeting process. The annual state budget is a really important mechanism for the government to support business, and particularly whilst we're still moving through the pandemic period where things may be okay right at the moment, but we don't know what's ahead. We don't know if there might be another outbreak and businesses may need even further support. And we still do have a level of restrictions, including the border closures. So it's really important that Business SA has got in front of the state government with this submission. And we get in several months before the budget, so we ensure that our recommendations are listened to and can form part of the state budget, which gets handed down in June.
Andrew, on behalf of our members, on behalf of the wider business community across South Australia, what are some of the key recommendations that we've encouraged the Treasurer to look at?
Well, Martin, I think most importantly, it's about supporting those businesses that are still impacted by COVID restrictions and the border closures. They're the really vulnerable part of our economy. When we recently surveyed businesses, we found that 15% were still down more than 50% revenue, and that was particularly in those heavily hit sectors like tourism, hospitality, those exposed to international students, nightclubs and the like. So that equates to about 7,000 businesses. So what we've asked for is some continuation of existing support like payroll tax waivers and return to work rebates, but also some support for businesses that might fall below the payroll tax threshold of $1.5 million. So they might be $10,000 grants to ensure that those businesses can continue to employ people beyond the end of JobKeeper.
Andrew, you've mentioned JobKeeper, of course, which ends on the 28th of March. Is the timing of this particularly important in terms of the context of the 21-22 financial year state government budget?
Well, absolutely. I mean, there are some supports that will already carry through to June, but we're looking at the 21-22 financial year. We know that the vaccine realistically is unlikely to be fully rolled out by the end of 2021, and then it is a bit unknown as to when exactly borders will reopen and things will get back to normal. So there is a level of support that will need to be ongoing. And we're also hearing from members that some costs, like for example insurance, particularly in relation to those heavily hit sectors like events and what have you, is going up. So we've asked for the state government to consider a stamp duty waiver on insurance to help those businesses along who are trying to get onto their feet again. And what we're very much looking at is business development. We have another recommendation about a de-risk fund for the arts, live performance and events sector, which is very much supporting them to do business, knowing that there are still risks if, for example, they get caught out by a lockdown and they have to have staff go into quarantine, and they might have to have those costs, wages paid at the same time. And there's particularly for live performance where they might have actors coming in from other states and so forth.
Andrew, this is a pre-election budget in so many ways, with the state election coming up in 2022. It's also a budget whereby we are hopefully emerging out of the COVID pandemic in terms of the economic impact. What makes for a good state budget?
Well, I think it's a bit of everything, Martin. It's both looking at the immediacy of what's required, but looking ahead. And we've got a number of recommendations in there that are also about looking ahead. For example, around tourism, we're supporting a $60 million project for the Adelaide Wine Capital Trail, which would link up the Clare Valley to the McLaren Vale with a bike trail, which would be a fantastic boost for South Australian tourism. We're also supporting duplications of the Augusta and the Dukes Highway as a regional economic development piece. I mean, these are long-term projects, but we need to get going on them. So the budget both has to address those short, medium and long-term projects.
On behalf of our members and on behalf of the wider business community right around South Australia, Business SA will advocate on your behalf for greater business conditions, stronger prosperity, and we wish you every success as we emerge, what in hopes, out of this post-COVID environment. Stay well.